What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we are checking out the brand new Samsung Galaxy A57. So this is it. This is the big one. This is the mid-range smartphone that I feel like everyone waits for every year. This has been one of Samsung's most popular smartphone tiers. The first couple A50-somethings basically pioneered this mid-range smartphone space. People still talk about the A52s like it was the greatest phone of all time. And in some years, these A50-somethings easily outsell the S series. For good reason. This is usually a darn good device with most of the specs and features you'd want at a much friendlier price point. But I'm not afraid to say that more recently, the price has crept up, the phone has felt a little stale. Samsung also kind of hides the A series with stealthy, quiet releases to keep the attention on the S series flagships, and all of those things are more true than ever, I think, this year. For as much as Samsung wrote about what's new with the A57, I'm sorry to say that this is probably the least new smartphone I've had my hands on so far this year. But if it's been maybe a few years since your last new A series upgrade, perhaps this is the one you've been waiting for. I really have a lot to say about this new A57, and I'm going to fill you in on everything you need to know as well in this video. But first things first, let me just quickly unbox it. I'll show you what comes inside the package, walk you through a couple quirks with the setup, and then we'll get into all the dirty details with this new mid-ranger. And speaking of details, these are the things that Samsung thinks are most important with the new A57. Slim design, long-lasting battery, powerful performance, Galaxy AI features like Best Face, and 6 years of Android updates. I'll talk about all those things, but a few of them are a bit of a stretch. So sliding off the lid here, the first thing you'll see is the phone itself. I'll talk about my color choice in a moment, but yeah, this is not my favorite at all. Setting the phone aside for just a moment, there's obviously nothing else in the bottom half of the box, but stuck inside the lid, per usual, is the Samsung logo stamped on the outside of the packet of accessories. You still get a SIM ejector tool, a whole bunch of paperwork and instructions that no one has ever read in all of human history, and then the familiar USB-C to USB-C cable for charging. Pretty much the same old unboxing experience for any of Samsung's smartphones nowadays. With all that stuff out of the way, here is the phone once again, and as we peel off the final protective layer and power it on, let's talk pricing and availability. Unfortunately, like I alluded to in the intro, the price for this year's new A57 has gone up. This phone now starts at $549 unlocked directly from Samsung for the base model, 128 gigabytes of storage and 8 gigabytes of RAM. And I have to say something about this. The original A50 launched for $349. The A51 was $399. The A52 was like $429. The A53 was $449, and the price stayed there for a few years before hitting $500 last year. And now this A57 sees the biggest price increase over a single year ever, and suddenly almost feels expensive. I know the price of everything has gone up, especially tech components like RAM and SSDs, but this is a pretty pricey mid-ranger now. On a positive note, the A57 will be sold basically everywhere in the world, including the US, starting on April 9th. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are some discounts from both Samsung themselves and from various carriers and prepaid networks, especially as we head into summertime. This isn't generally the sort of smartphone people pay full price for, given all the potential discounts, but that doesn't negate the fact that the price of this thing has reached a concerning new high. Also, in setting up this phone, I came across this terrible screen, which showed me 3 garbage games that automatically install on my phone, and 5 more I could choose to install if I wanted. I'm not sure if this is unique to the international or global version of this device, which I have here that I smuggled in early, or if this is something Samsung needed to do across all the devices to not have this phone be like $700. These apps pay to be on the phone and subsidize the price a little. But either way, a mild annoyance before we even got started. At 6.7 inches, this is the same size Samsung phone as the million other Samsung phones that came before it. The slightly slimmer black borders and subtly larger bottom chin yield you a screen-to-body ratio of exactly 88.8%, which is about 1% better than last year, but basically not noticeable. This is about as familiar of a phone from the front as can be, and around back, it's also pretty familiar. This A57 does have the more premium build and materials, Gorilla Glass Victus Plus on both the back and covering the front display. It rocks an all-aluminum frame painted to match your color choice, and it's now IP68 dust and water resistant. That's the first new thing, technically, or at least improvement over last year. Speaking of the color, I opted for gray, and gray it is. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, why didn't he get one of the fun, vibrant color choices? Well, the other options were icy blue and lilac, both of which we've sort of seen before, and then navy, which is actually going to be the only color option available for the US, so a ton of people will be getting that one. This gray was sort of a new shade, but it's so glossy and reflective. My giant peanut-shaped head is on full view, along with a ton of fingerprints already, so really not my favorite, but I'm always down to try something a little different. And two other quick notes about the build. Samsung says this phone's thinness is a new feature, or I guess selling point, and yeah, it's thinner than last year's A56 by 1/2 of a millimeter. I mean, yeah, it feels a little thinner, I guess, but it's not S25 Edge thin, and I guess maybe that makes it slightly more comfortable to hold, but I consider this thinness to be a nothing burger. The rear camera module is also technically a tiny bit different, but you can barely tell that. All in all, this is darn near identical to last year's phone. Taking a quick look around here, there's nothing on the left side. On the right, same old power button and volume buttons, a couple mystery holes up at the top, and down at the bottom, the main loudspeaker, alongside the USB-C port and the SIM card tray. And make sure you poke the correct hole if you pop out the SIM card here. It's the one furthest from the USB port. This phone supports dual physical SIMs and eSIM, no micro SD card expansion, that's long gone. And like I said at the start, you can spec this phone with either 128 or 256 gigabytes of storage. Depending on where you live, there is a 512 gig model available too in some regions. And you guys saw already, but I'll give you the full tour here of all the pre-installed apps that come on these Samsung phones now. It's a lot, a ton of Samsung ones, obviously, also the Google ones, but those games are here too, I mentioned earlier, that I couldn't opt out of. So yeah, super annoying. There is still an in-display fingerprint sensor on this phone, and it is still the older optical sensor. So it works, but it requires that tap and pause. It's not as fast as maybe what you might be used to on a flagship phone, or even some other mid-rangers from other brands. And I'm surprised, honestly, that this hasn't been upgraded at this point. When it comes to the viewing experience, Samsung seems to have added one tiny thing here that technically means it's an upgrade. This A57 now has a Super AMOLED Plus panel rather than a standard non-Plus Super AMOLED panel, which basically means better, more accurate colors, a bit of a brightness boost, and potentially a sharper look up close. But everything else spec-wise remains the same. 2340 by 1080 resolution for about 385 pixels per inch, an adaptive 120 Hz refresh rate you can enable in settings, and technically the same peak brightness values, though like I said, visually the different AMOLED panel might look a little brighter, a little more colorful, and that's all depending on how keen of an eye you might have. I don't know that this display change is so drastic that you'll be wowed by the difference, but I still think this is a great screen overall for a mid-range phone like this. And in fact, spec for spec, this really isn't all that different than what Samsung pushes on the regular flagship S-series phone. I know that other gaming-focused phones and even some mid-rangers from the likes of Xiaomi, for example, are now touting 144 Hz refresh rates and super high brightness levels under certain conditions. And perhaps there's still room for Samsung to take this display to the next level, but honestly, I have no real complaints here with the screen. This is as good as you're going to get for an everyday viewing experience. Samsung didn't sacrifice anything or take anything away or really cheap out. And arguably, it's the same sort of displays that some $1,000 phones are still offering nowadays. So I'm good with the screen, and I really can't imagine what I'd change at this point. Something else that's quite good on this phone is the speaker setup. I don't know that anything is actually different here. It's still the same main loudspeaker on the bottom with the secondary speaker hidden inside the earpiece, but the sound coming out of them is loud for one, and very crisp, very detailed. There's no distortion, nothing muffled. Even at max volume, it's a really solid out loud listening setup. So remember, Samsung is explicitly touting some powerful performance coming from this new A57, and inside they did stick in a brand new processor, their own Exynos 1680 and Eclipse 550 GPU. There are both 8GB and 12GB RAM options for this phone, though 99% of people will be stuck with 8GB like I have here. And since this is actually a brand new processor, here are the Geekbench scores if you want the benchmark numbers to make some comparisons. The new Exynos 1680 is technically powerful enough to handle even more than what this phone is made of. It's supposedly good enough for a 144Hz display and 200 megapixel camera and all the AI goodies you can think of. More on that in a moment. So props to Samsung for sticking something inside this phone that's all new and all powerful. Now, is this enough to finally shake off the stigma that's long been attached to Exynos processors? I'm not sure yet. TBD on that. You guys can let me know in the comments. I will say, in my own experience here, just setting up this phone and using it for a little while, it took a little bit for the phone to kind of wake up and get going. It felt a little clunky and jittery as things were installing in the background and as I was starting to open up a handful of the apps, but fortunately, the phone smoothed out quite a bit, and it now has the fast and fluid feel you'd expect to get with an almost $600 Samsung. I will obviously put this phone to the test in the coming weeks to see exactly how good this Exynos chip is, and I also want to compare it to both the flagship processors and some Snapdragon mid-rangers just to see where it's at. But I'm rooting for Samsung here because I'd like to see this phone be a powerhouse considering how pricey it's now become. I do also have to mention some software stuff. Samsung is promising 6 years of Android updates and security patches. They say so right on the box, so it must be true. And that's great. I don't doubt that many people will be using this phone and keeping it for quite a long time. It ships with Android 16 and One UI 8.5, which offers a handful of Galaxy AI goodies, but you'll notice it's not the most up-to-date or comprehensive collection of AI stuff that was also launched with Samsung's new S series just a month or two ago. Mainly what you get here is a lot of AI image editing and camera features and text and writing help and circle to search. So on the one hand, that's one thing that still separates a phone like this from the flagships, but maybe that's a plus for some people. You otherwise still get the full-fledged Android and Samsung experience with this phone. There's no real software limitations, and I actually think that sort of a simplified experience, if you want to call it that, is an unintended perk of Samsung's A series phones still. Also inside this phone is seemingly the same 5,000 milliamp hour battery that was used in last year's phone. No new battery tech, no bigger size, and no faster charging speeds, though the 45 watt wired speeds supported on this phone are pretty good, so long as you buy the right plug to pair it with. You can get a 60% charge in about 30 minutes. And also still missing on this phone, wireless charging for some reason. I guess Samsung thinks no one with an A series needs to wirelessly charge their phone. Finally, when it comes to the cameras, while the actual hardware hasn't really changed, Samsung says the camera software and actual photos and videos should yield you some noticeable improvements. Around back, you still get a 50 megapixel main shooter, 12 megapixel ultra-wide lens, and 5 megapixel macro lens for up-close pictures. The selfie camera is still a 12 megapixel lens for that beautiful face of yours, and inside the camera app, I haven't really found any worthwhile changes or improvements. Shooting modes and settings seem to all be the same, and in fact, the couple limitations, like the 10 times digital zoom, I feel should be improved at this point. The few other things Samsung says are new with the camera are better nightography, so less noise and a brighter look for your low light and nighttime shots, super HDR for video with the selfie camera, so enhanced saturation, boosted brightness, blurrier backgrounds, AI-assisted portrait pics for enhanced detail and better separation of the subject and background. Basically, a lot of image processing and behind-the-scenes improvements rather than outright capability add-ons or hardware upgrades. I've generally felt that Samsung's A series phones have decent enough camera setups, especially this A50-something tier the last couple of years. Mostly if you're just not so totally into photography or videography, but still use a camera pretty regularly. The distance between a phone like this and Samsung's flagship line, I feel, is still pretty vast. And in fact, out of everything, I think the cameras are still the single biggest difference between this phone and a flagship. But unless you're all in on being a content creator or picture taker or on-the-go video maker, this is a better than average camera setup with some slight improvements that will get the job done like 99% of the time. So what is actually new with the new Samsung Galaxy A57? Well, it's a little thinner, a little more powerful, and the screen might look a little more colorful. Your photos and videos might look a little better too, especially in the dark. It also comes in gray, and oh yeah, it's more expensive than ever. I don't know that this is the definitive upgrade that folks were waiting to see for this new A57, but I also know most people don't upgrade their phones every single year anymore. So perhaps if you still have the tried and true A52s for some reason, or an A54, or maybe a cheaper, lesser A series phone like an A35, then this new A57 could be the big upgrade you've been waiting for the last couple of years. Or perhaps you're okay waiting one more year. But what do you guys think about this new A57? Is it a phone you're considering right now? Is it worth the upgrade? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.